now the protesters have gotten out of hand. The Afghan army is trying to stop them. They're firing off warning shots, but we nearly got stuck in the protest and we have to run.
The NSA may have had prior knowledge to a possible terror attack in Kenya. That all said and done, there are terror threats that come through on a weekly, if not daily basis. But what this official said is that this warning stood out from the normal drumbeat of warnings that have come in. This morning, a team from the International Committee of the Red Cross in Syria to deliver medical supplies and inspect medical facilities were abducted at gunpoint by rebel forces. A British official wants to change the monarchy's discriminatory rule book so that if their first child is a girl, she would be next in line to become queen. For today, Atia Abawi, NBC News. Logical event. When you look at the counterinsurgency strategy that was implemented in 2009, General McChrystal mentioned in his assessment that whichever side thinks that they're winning will actually be victorious in the war. This isn't going to make the pro-Morsi camp very happy. There are warrants out for the arrest of many leaders in the Muslim Brotherhood.
You guys actually just found an IED, an improvised explosive device, down at the intersection there, and what they're about to do is detonate it.
It's hard to believe that all it takes is 2 paper tickets like these to get into the wedding of the century.
Ryan, we in America sometimes underestimate the intelligence mechanism among the insurgency in Afghanistan and Pakistan and their use of new media, including the internet. This pastor's tactics in burning the Holy Quran in that small church, as you mentioned, barely made any kind of news in America until we saw the protests taking place in Afghanistan. And this is primarily because there are very educated Afghans and Pakistanis among the insurgency who are monitoring us and monitoring what's going on in America. One analyst said that this is very worrying to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has said if Iran crosses the red line when it comes to their nuclear program, that they will attack Iran. Does this mean that America won't help them? That's one side of the story.
The crowd has gotten a bit out of hand, ripping down fences, and a stand for journalists. Dozens of journalists fell to the ground as Dr. Abdullah was speaking.
Very harsh words for the United States. It happened in an exclusive interview with our own Atia Abawi.
Would you say you believe that some of these would be intentional insecurity brought by NATO and the United States?
There is a very strong perception that some of that insecurity is intentional, yes.
A lot of the country has already been handed over into Afghan hands, and they need their hand held right now. And basically, when America goes to the train, advise, and assist role, they're going to be holding Afghanistan, the Afghan security forces' hands. They're going to be sitting in the background, waiting for the Afghans to ask for help. And the Afghans do eventually ask for help.
Atia Abawi, your interview with Karzai was seminal in terms of me, at least, understanding where his mind space is heading into these discussions with the president. But you've just done great work there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks. This is a place that was the capital for the Taliban regime from 96 to 2001. And I've been to Kandahar plenty of times to tell you that they do have a hold in Kandahar. Kandahar city is not really run by the Afghan government.
So just be careful when you go back. Can we just get that picture of Atia when she was embedded with the U.S. Marines? Can we get that up on the screen to show the contrast? There you are right there. Atia, take a look. That's what you look like at that point. And take a look how glamorous and beautiful you look right now. What a difference a few thousand miles makes, right?
I think it's CNN's makeup people that do a great job.
You did a great job for us. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Time now for our Friday Night Making a Difference report. Helping orphan children in a war zone isn't work for everybody, but it's a life's work for a woman we're about to meet named Betty Tisdale. And her work is making a difference all along the way. Our report tonight from Kabul and NBC's Atia Abawi.
So this is for a girl, this is for a boy.
A happy moment in a country with too few of them. Seattle native Betty Tisdale on her 3rd visit to Afghanistan, delivering gifts from 7th graders in Redmond, Washington.
I feel that there is nothing impossible to do, and a war isn't going to stop me.
Betty runs Halo, helping and loving orphans, and she's here to open Afghanistan's first licensed nursery for orphans. It's at the House of Flowers Orphanage, which provides food, shelter, and education to 31 children. More than 1,000 are waiting to get in.
This is the only Montessori school in Afghanistan and hopes that these children who had a rough start will have a very bright future. Betty, who turns 90 this year, is an orphan herself, and she's devoted her life to helping children all over the world. She's been at it a long time. In 1975, as the Vietnam War was ending, Betty evacuated more than 200 orphans, brought them to America, and found them all homes in less than a month, including 5 girls she adopted herself. She had already adopted 5 boys. Yes. We joined her in Kabul as she personally picked out children's clothes and supplies.
Is it less money?
She's a skilled haggler. She has to be. Every penny counts.
A few cents here and a few cents there.
Betty says helping these children helps make the world a safer place.
So you won't leave when America withdraws?
No, no. If you get to know the people, you get to know the children, how can you just say, okay, the war is over? I'm not here because of the war anyhow.
The children here are just happy that the woman once known as the Angel of Saigon has spread her wings in Afghanistan. Atia Abawi, NBC News, Kabul.
As Atia Abawi shows us, this will be a fairy tale event for an excited 7-year-old girl.
The expected royal wedding guest list doesn't need many last names. It's got Elton, Beck, and Kanye. But the prince and his princess saw to it that not all the invitations were delivered to mansions and castles. There's the Buckleberry bunch from Kate's hometown. Not exactly the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, but close. The shopkeepers over at Peaches have known the Middletons for years.
We were obviously joking with Kate when she was coming here that if ever you do get married, don't forget us. Send me an invite so I can get my suit dry cleaned.
And sure enough, the postman, who's also invited, delivered the good news. Meet the Suttons. Kate and Will haven't, but this family is royally captivated. George is named after the king, along with sisters Tabitha Camilla and Hermione Elizabeth, who suffers from a genetic disease. Her mom, Helen, applied for special tickets for the disabled online.
I thought nothing of it, and then lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, we got an email saying that we'd been selected to go into this special disabled enclosure. So we were absolutely thrilled.
It's hard to believe that all it takes is 2 paper tickets like these to get into the wedding of the century. 7-year-old Hermione already has her outfit picked out for the big day.
She dresses up as princesses, she plays with princess dolls all the time, tiaras and jewellery and whatever. And she reckons that one day she's going to marry an African prince.
And until her lucky prince finds her, Hermione, with the rest of the world, will enjoy this real-life fairy tale. Atia Abawi, NBC News.
Now to Afghanistan and the rise in violence sparked by the burning of Qurans by American troops there. As there was a fresh attack outside an airport overnight on the heels of the murders of 2 U.S. military advisors inside an Afghan government compound. NBC's Atia Abawi is in Kabul. Atia, good morning to you.
Good morning, Matt. A suicide car bomb struck the gates of a military airport in eastern Afghanistan today, killing 9 Afghans. And there are also possible reports of a poisoning at a U.S. base. The military says they're investigating the incident, but no one has been injured. This follows 7 days of unrelenting anger.
It's been a week of rage, frustration, and bloodshed. And the anger shows no signs of letting up. Just this morning, a suicide bomber struck the airport and base at Jalalabad in eastern Afghanistan. 4 Americans and more than 30 Afghans have been killed since U.S. soldiers at Bagram Air Base accidentally burned Qurans and other religious materials last week. Despite repeated apologies from both U.S. and NATO officials, the situation remains very tense. President Hamid Karzai once again tried to diffuse the anger, saying our emotions were shown all over the country regarding this. It is time now to return to calm and keep it. Karzai also offered his condolences to the families of the Americans who were slain because of the ensuing chaos. Last Thursday, 25-year-old Sergeant Joshua Bourne and 22-year-old Corporal Timothy Conrad Jr. were killed during the protest by an Afghan soldier who turned his weapon on them. And then on Saturday, 2 high-ranking U.S. military officers were killed inside their offices in the heavily fortified Interior Ministry. Their killer is still on the loose.
There's no place necessarily inside Afghanistan that's safe for anybody. I don't think a great deal of progress has actually been made in places it really needs to be made.
The latest Quran burnings follows a long line of insults that has intensified the public outrage towards the U.S., including last year's intentional burning of a Quran by a pastor in Florida and the video of U.S. Marines urinating on the corpses of Taliban fighters. The U.S. ambassador to Afghanistan believes the anger will eventually settle. Last night, the Pentagon said that a planned visit this week by Afghanistan's defense and interior ministers has been postponed as they try and end the violence.
The anti-American and Western sentiment here is at an all-time high within Afghanistan, and it has many foreigners here living on edge. Matt?
Atia Abawi in Afghanistan for us this morning. Atia, thank you very much.
How can I not cry? God, I wish I would have died. Sob Sabzwarai. Before dawn on February 12th, 5 members of her family were killed as U.S. Special Forces stormed their home. A night that had started with celebrations to welcome the birth of a boy. Gululai was 18 and engaged to be married. Salaha had 10 children and Bibi Shirin had 4. Both women were pregnant. Zohir was a local prosecutor. He left behind 7 children. And Dawood was a police commander who worked side by side with the Americans. He had 8 children, including 16-year-old Siddiqullah, who was shot twice but survived. This is the family's account of that night.
At around 4 a.m. that cold February night, Commander Dawood went into the room where the party was taking place. It had just wound down, and he noticed that the light was turned off and not by them. That's when he noticed a red laser. When he came out to the courtyard right here, he noticed forces, U.S. forces on the rooftop. They shot him at this area. That's when his family members, the women, came running from different parts of the compound. They pulled him into that room with his brother, Mohammed Zohir. They went into that area, and the brother tried to come out, and he said in English to the U.S. forces, "Don't shoot at us. We're people of the government." The women were holding him back, saying, "You will be shot too," and they were right, because they started shooting in that direction, and that's where they were killed. 2 were actually still alive, but not able to be taken to a hospital because the forces would not let the family leave the home.
An elderly relative of the dead walks in and shows me a bullet he says was fired that night. Mohammad Sabir says he witnessed the deaths of his brothers, wife, sister, and niece. She was squatting here, and I thought my sister fainted, but she was dead, he says. Shortly after the incident, NATO said a joint U.S.-Afghan force responding to intelligence about militant activity made a gruesome discovery, the bound and gagged bodies of 3 women. It also said that several insurgents engaged the joint force in a firefight, but a month later admitted no one at the compound had opened fire. And this week, NATO agreed international forces were responsible for the deaths of the women. But now there are more damaging accusations. Hours after the shootings, Mohammad Sabir says he shot this cell phone video.
I'm watching what's going on here.
You can hear American voices, the first investigators on the scene. Sabir claims soldiers on the raid dug bullets out of the bodies and then cleaned the wounds in an attempt to cover up. Afghan investigators won't comment on that claim, but tell CNN they have found evidence of a cover-up. NATO says it has discovered no evidence that any of our forces did anything to manipulate the evidence at the scene or the bodies. Its investigation continues. Thursday, a U.S. general offered his condolences to the family, calling the actions of that February night a mistake, and in Pashtun tradition offered sheep and money as compensation. I said no, Haji Sharafuddin says. Give me the money your men took from us that night, and give me the spies who gave you the wrong family. A family that has lost 5 members because of bad information, and the sort of bungled operation that the U.S. military here is trying hard to avoid. Atia Abawi, CNN, Khataba village in Paktia province, Afghanistan.